Hey there, my name is Trina, and today I'll be filling in as host for Orion. I'm joined by Coach Noelle.
Hey there.
And also Coach Morin.
Hey.
So today we're going to talk about a topic that we've actually received a few questions about from the ADHD community.
Hi, I'm Susan from Texas, and I was recently diagnosed with combined type ADHD in my 40s. So I'm wondering what I should know about ADHD and perimenopause. Anecdotally, a lot of my friends with ADHD seem to think that perimenopause has impacted their ADHD. However, my primary care doctor says that there's no connection. And I know that women's health is under research. So I'm just wondering what I should know about this time.
I'm super excited to talk about this because I'm about to turn 40 next year and I have no idea what is coming. So this is perfectly timed for me. So I'm really excited to talk about this. So thank you for being here, Coach Morin.
Of course.
So let's maybe start with what it is. And
Sure.
I think maybe just a basic definition of what this is.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and it's complicated, honestly. Perimenopause is this time before menopause. And so it can stretch out to 10 years before you're done with your periods. And so in that whole time, you can have a ton of different symptoms. Honestly, any kind of like health issues that you've ever had may become more intense or stronger. Anything that's like something in your family, a genetic thing that you've got your eye on, it might become present during this time. So it's just a lot of different things to look for. But so perimenopause is this time before you stop having your periods, and then menopause is after you haven't had your period for a year, and then post-menopause is the entire time after that. So there's like kind of these three stages.
Oh boy, that sounds like a ball of fun. So one of the questions that came in from Susan, basically their doctor said that perimenopause shouldn't affect her ADHD. And to that you say,
wow. Wow. I have evidence otherwise. So here I am. I'm at 48 years old. I've definitely gone through my 40s. I would say starting around 40 is when I started to notice symptoms of perimenopause. And they weren't all ADHD related, but a lot of them were. And actually, it was during this time in my 40s is when I actually got tested for ADHD. Why? Because my symptoms, I like to call them characteristics. My characteristics of ADHD were very much heightened, intensified during this time. And I just thought, it's really important to me right now. I actually hadn't been on ADHD medication until I was in my 40s because I just thought, well, everything was manageable up until this time. Now, in my 40s, I was like, oh my goodness, I need all the support I can possibly get right now. So I got tested. I got on ADHD medication. I even got on some anxiety medication because a lot of the anxiety part of ADHD, there's like this co-occurrence that happens. And I think that was also kind of heightened during this time. And so those kind of things, those supports, those things, just like I think about them like buoys. They buoyed me to the top of the water so that like I was able to handle life in so many ways. And so without so much work to just get to the top of the pool. So I could breathe and then I could handle things. And so it was really important for me to identify perimenopause and ADHD as co-occurring so that I could get the support I needed.
I know you probably have more of like evidence, scientific research that you could provide to show that this is like a legit thing that happens. I would say I have at least anecdotal evidence that I have so many clients, women who were like, I didn't find out that I had ADHD until menopause because it got so bad. I know the symptoms that my particular clients are experiencing and that have gotten worse, but maybe you could tell us a little bit about like, there's probably some overlap or things like that. What would you say are the symptoms that people might expect to see happen or worsen at this time?
Yeah, for sure. I think some of the ADHD characteristics and menopause symptoms that kind of overlap with each other might be one of them is trouble sleeping. Sometimes that's a big one. Like with ADHD, our brain sometimes just doesn't turn off at night, and it's really hard to kind of transition into this state of being able to fall asleep. And that can very much intensify during perimenopause. And a lot of this has to do with hormones on the menopause side. So just change in hormones. With ADHD, it's just partly hormones and partly just our brain wiring, right? And so we may have to like work a little bit harder, just be really conscious about our bedtime kind of hygiene, sleep hygiene, like going to bed. Other things like brain fog and focus. That's something that we all probably have this challenge with ADHD, and that can definitely get heightened during perimenopause. Working memory. I think sensory issues can also be a little bit heightened too, where definitely with perimenopause, you're often can either get hot flashes or in general, just a little warmer. And so every room I go into, I'm like, oh my goodness, what do I have to rethink what I'm wearing, how I even think of exit strategies, like how am I going to get out of this room if I get to, or whatever. Like I think about those things. And that has definitely been an issue. With ADHD, that was an issue. With ADHD and menopause, it's more of an issue, I would say. Another thing might be emotional regulation. It's an issue that like definitely ADHDers deal with. And I think that it can definitely be intensified, emotional regulation. And especially if you are maybe a woman who has been traditionally like we've sometimes been enculturated to take care of people and not take care of ourselves. And that emotional regulation, like if we haven't done the work to take care of ourselves up until this point, and definitely like sometimes like these big aha moments during perimenopause where it becomes very clear that things probably like your priorities and how you take care of yourself really has to change. And then also just like fatigue too, just like being completely tired all the time is a big one too. And I think it might have to do with not sleeping as well. But it also, I think, is just with ADHD, I have often had a hard time with my energy level because of just the work and focus. It takes so much energy. And I think with perimenopause, that's also much more intensified as well.
Now I am like scared now hearing all
Okay,
this
I don't want to scare you. I'm
like,
so sorry.
No, it's just that I already at 35 experience all these things as a very, very chronically ill person. And if those things are going to get worse, I'm just wondering, could someone who is like younger and not there yet do to prepare for that, if anything?
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's probably a lot like, a financial planner telling you to start investing when you're young or something. And they give you the graph of if you put this much money in when you're 25, it's going to go up to $1 million or something when you're 65. That's how I feel about health when you're young now. It's a lot easier for me to say this now, but just invest in yourself, in your health, in taking care of yourself. If there's something that you think might work to increase your health in some way, do it. Try it out now so that you have a good idea of what is going to work for you. I think another thing is, as far as exercise, like when you're in perimenopause, it's really important to start doing like maybe some strength training, like the bone density is important. With ADHD, movement and exercise is also really good for our brain. So it's like a win-win if you can figure out what works for you activity-wise. You can start that anytime. And it may change, obviously, as your interests change, as you get older, whatever. But it's really good to explore those things when you're young, because then it's one less thing you have to kind of like worry about when you get old. Like if you aren't big into the gym and you love surfing or something, like do that more. What's the thing that like really lights you up about moving your body? Find out ways to do it. Figure out ways to do it.
So interesting. I love all of that advice. I'm thinking about going surfing. I'm curious though, because you both have coaching clients. Do you hear from them that they go to the doctor or they go to see the clinician and they're like, what kind of responses are they getting when they come to them with these problems? And are they being listened to? I have this suspicion that it's not good.
I think I don't think probably most like general practitioners, especially, but maybe any doctor has the niche specialty of menopause and ADHD. I think that's probably very, very rare. And so you may get somebody who's been trained in menopause. And actually, if you go to the Menopause Society website, you can even you can put in your zip code and you can find general practitioner doctors who have been trained to understand menopause, which is great.
Oh, that's great
to know. And I do think that if you finding somebody who understands menopause, they may be more willing to understand or figure out your ADHD along with it. That's my guess, because I think they probably see a lot of people who are going through menopause who have probably a lot of ADHD-like symptoms. I'm sure of it. And the other way around, I think a practitioner who knows a lot about ADHD may not know as much about menopause. That's just my guess. But yeah, and it's good to just keep looking for the right doctor who they may not totally understand, but even if they believe you, even if they just believe you that these things are real, that's better than blowing it off and saying it's not real.
Really interesting what you said, that like maybe a neurotypical person going through menopause is just now experiencing what ADHD symptoms are. They must be so freaked out. I actually feel bad for those people.
Can you imagine? Yes.
If they're just like, whoa, why am I forgetting everything? And why like they're experiencing ADHD kind of symptoms all at once. And like ours are just getting heightened, which is still not great, but to go from baseline to symptoms must be a shock to the system also.
Right. Yeah. Totally. So
and
true.
Yeah. You know, what you said about finding someone who actually believes you really like hits on. That's hard enough just as a woman.
Yes.
To have a doctor who believes like, oh, I'm in pain or I'm experiencing this, you need to test for this. Like just to have a doctor who believes you and takes you seriously at baseline, and then we're adding like this other step. It's the same as just plain ADHD minus menopause. We have a hard time getting doctors to believe us that, yeah, I think I might have ADHD, or there's all of the masking that goes into manage it, and the worry that, oh, if I try to get medication, they're going to call me a drug seeker. And
Right.
I was wondering if there are more resources out there for late diagnosed women with ADHD who are in menopause. I'm finding that it's become impossible to mask, and my relationships are much more strained, and everything is just a little more erratic than it used to be.
So many thoughts on that. I agree. I think she said something about that masking is just exhausting. It's just exhausting, right? And it's hard to continue to do it. And I completely agree. The older I get too, the more I realize I need to be in more situations where I don't have to mask as much or even as long. I can be in situations now where I just need more breaks, or I just need to that less. Do it less often or less long.
I would think that's really interesting though, because I've started to notice that I need my ADHD people more often.
Yeah,
so throughout the year, I try to get together with my ADHD people so that I can unmask completely for a while. And that has been really helpful for me to put time on my calendar to spend with those people who let me be unmasked. So like it might not be your ADHD friend, but whoever you feel that kind of comfort and freedom with, try to like actually put that on the calendar. I feel like that's really important.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And it's one reason why I decided to go into coaching, I think, was because there's I am able to set up a schedule that works best for me. I can take breaks when I need to take breaks. I work from home. Sensory wise, I have a lot of control here. So there's lots of things that like, I think that I may have even changed my entire career because I don't want to say it's just because of menopause, but for lots of things, probably ADHD and menopause, perimenopause, it could cause you to change big things. It could cause you to change just small things. I need to go to bed earlier now. And that's without unapologetically, I'm going to bed early, or I need a longer transition time to bed. Like I need to give myself time to really wind down because it's just harder these days to like kind of like unwind your brain from the day. And so, yeah.
Super interesting. I'm wondering if we could back up just a second and maybe explain masking a little bit.
Oh, yes.
We talked about masking before on the podcast, haven't we?
I think we haven't had an episode about it, but we've like mentioned it here and
mentioned
there
it.
in several episodes.
But I don't know if we've never really dived in, but I do think it's really interesting. And like maybe why menopause might be increasing the like the feelings and the need to mask.
Yeah.
So, like the relationship there.
Great question.
So masking.
Well, yeah, we could all probably talk about masking as ADHDers, but for me, masking is just like showing up. I feel like it as my quote unquote best self, like putting on a good, I don't want to say show because it really is me, but who I think the people around me would feel most comfortable with. And so it depends on who the crowd is, right? It depends on who I'm with. And honestly, with some people, I can be a little more ADHD maybe with them. And that actually adds to the energy and the fun. And with other people, I have to really, really hold back and leave more space. I don't know if you both feel the same way about that.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. I think that that holding back is a key part of it. It's when we're talking about like ADHD and masking, it's okay, what are the symptoms that maybe neurotypical people or people who just don't really get it are going to be annoyed by, or what do I have to be constantly mindful of and using so much more of my processing power in my brain to be aware of my behaviors and, you know, what I'm saying and how I'm saying it and all those things is a really big part of masking.
That's it. And I think what you said there, Noelle, is the processing power. I think that's it. It's part of this focus and brain fog that sometimes happens that I feel like now I know, especially with my medication, like I know even parts of the day that I'm going to be better at masking than others. And the medication wears off, I think it's partly like less and less. I'm less and less able to have that masking happen easily. And I just have probably less need for it or like desire to do it, honestly.
Yeah. So like I have a couple of theories, but what do you think it is about menopause that might make some people feel like they need to mask maybe more than they did before?
It reminds me of like what Trina just said about going through menopause and maybe having some of these ADHD characteristics for the first time and realizing, oh, this is not necessarily socially acceptable in some situations. And if those characteristics are heightened or intensified, there's even more of a need to kind of like feel like we need to cover them up and just act more neurotypical. So remembering things or staying focused or not feeling tired, like just trying to not look tired or those kind of things, or not being bothered by some sensory things. All of those parts of perimenopause, we may feel like, ooh, I don't want to be the person who complains about this thing, or I don't want to be the one who lets anybody down on my team. I don't want to be the one who stands out in any negative, again, quote unquote, negative way. So yeah, there's just this like maybe more intense need to cover those things up and not show up like that. So
that's so frustrating because as the symptoms like get bigger, you have to work harder to mask them.
Right?
Yeah. And then probably you get to a point where you're like, this is too much work to try to mask all of this. I'm not.
Right.
It's so exhausting. It's exhausting having more intense symptoms, and it's exhausting trying to mask. So I'm just going to not mask as much. And I bet that is nice to a certain extent, but also the people around you would probably be so confused.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Like it might change some relationships in your life, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. It has definitely changed some relationships in my life. And I'm definitely like where I've been super accommodating. And I think, again, women are often encultured to accommodate. And I think I've done that my whole life in so many ways. And I'm doing that less and less. And that is shocking to people when that changes, and it doesn't feel good to people who've really from that over the years. And so the great thing is if they're able to accept that, then they're going to actually see a much more authentic Maren, and they might actually like me a lot more because I'm actually who I really am.
If you could say one thing on this topic or prepare someone who's going through this, what would you like to tell that person who might be listening?
Oh, great question. I think I would probably just want to say that taking care of yourself is not selfish. It's responsible. It's the right thing to do to get to know yourself on a lot of different levels as much as you can and accept where you're at. So understand your ADHD and don't be afraid to advocate for yourself at the doctor, or like we talked about, taking care of like figuring out things you like to do for exercise. Be willing to say no to things if it's not good for your health, your mental health, your emotional health, that kind of stuff. And so all of those things, it sometimes might feel a little selfish or unimportant, but it's actually maybe the most important thing that you can do for yourself right now. And it's not something you can just like decide to do and then, oh, here I am. I'm like living my best life. That's where I think like definitely coaching is a great way to do that. Coaching is never like a magic pill, but it's a way to get support to kind of make small decisions that are going to help you take care of yourself every single week. And those little decisions that you make every single week is going to add up to a much healthier life, honestly. And it could add years to your life. It could make the whole experience much more enjoyable and definitely just feel like you're getting supported through it as well.
Yeah, and you're not alone.
You're not alone. Exactly.
You've been listening to Brainwaves. If you'd like to learn more information on this topic, check out shimmer.care/brainwaves. Brainwaves is brought to you by Shimmer ADHD Coaching.
Because you deserve to shimmer. You deserve to shimmer, to shimmer, to shimmer, to shimmer. Ooh, you deserve to shimmer. You deserve to shimmer.